Agile WoW. So the Agile WoW is about the agile ways of working. So there is certain ways of working that we all need to adapt and adopt in order to kind of get our work done. And that's where, if we talk about this in this context, there are some certain rules and principles. The first and foremost thing is that we should actually work with a purpose. So whatever we try and do in that context today is all about having a purpose and intent with which we try and do the work, because there's so many distractions, there are so many different places, different kind of advices, resources that are available easily nowadays. It's important that we kind of prioritize and have a sense of purpose with whatever we do. And then you've got the assume simplicity. It's all about simplicity. It's not the complexity. There's so much of complexity already in our life. We've got so much of different distractions everywhere. How can we make it simple? And that's where, for example, if we talk about the Google search engine, when it came about 20 years, 15 years ago, it actually tried to bring in that sense of simplicity into the whole thing. And that's why nowadays the whole navigation behavior of people, the habit of using a product changed completely now. We're not really browsing, click, 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 and doing all that 10, 15 clicks to get to one page. Instead, we are just trying to search for something on Amazon or eBay or any of these e-commerce products. So it's that kind of simplicity. How can we make things simple? How can we simplify the complicated steps? And how can we reduce this? Previously, about again 25 years ago, there were so many sites offering the websites offering the e-commerce functionality where you can log on to a website and then buy a product. But then when Amazon came in, it tried to simplify the whole process into just 4 steps. Show the catalog, select the product, add it to the shopping cart, then check it out, give payment information, billing information, and there you go. That's it. You're done. Whereas the rest of the sites had those complicated register, login, and then first do this, first do that. There's so many complications, so many difficulties that they made for the customers, whereas Amazon came up with the simplicity mantra. And that's why pretty much every website now in the last 5-10 years, they have restructured their processes and approach to making it simple for their customers to buy some goods from their websites. And it's also not just buying, but also returning. Nowadays, it's easy to return your goods as well, isn't it? So it's making that thing simple. That's what matters, again, in the context of the e-commerce website we were discussing. And then embrace change. Again, very important. We discussed at length about the importance of the change in our life and the work that we do nowadays. It's inevitable that changes happen. If you look at the current situation now, nobody expected the kind of change that we have been forced to in the last few months, thanks to this pandemic. But we have to adapt. We have got to take it. We've got to embrace the changes and then just adapt ourselves so that we can adjust our way of working, our way of living in the context of what is going on around. So that's pretty much what is the mantra, and that's the only way. We cannot fight it. There's no point actually fighting the change. And then focus on the current delivery. Don't worry. In the context of Agile, it's all about the current delivery. Don't worry about next year. Don't worry about 2022, 2023. Previously, surprisingly, that it's most of the business plans and the organizational plans used to have like a 5-year plan. So they're talking about 5 years. After 5 years, how would they see themselves? So it's the same question, I think, when we go to the interviews. One of the most asked questions for the interviewers is, where do you see yourself after 5 years? I mean, to be honest, the way the current trends are going, we cannot predict even what happens after the next quarter. So the entire outlook has changed. It's all about thinking short term and making sure that whatever we do is actually kind of addressing the immediate needs. If not immediate, maybe a short-term needs, not definitely the long-term needs. Here, the long-term nowadays has got kind of constricted to, let's say, 1 year, and then medium term is about 6 months, short term is about a month to 3 months. That's the kind of time frames we're looking at even for businesses, it's the same concept. So you should look at what we're trying to deliver now. Again, in the context of the e-commerce mobile application that we were talking, e-commerce website, we were actually taking an example. So with that one, so what we're trying to do is we need to look at what we're delivering by December or November. So the next 3-4 sprints is what we need to look at. The shopping cart functionality, the ability to add the items in from the catalog. That's about it. We don't have to worry about all the other things that could come in. The team needs to focus on this, and they need to work on that, develop this, implement, test it, and implement it, deliver it. That's the whole focus of the team. That's like a blinker view. That's what we do, as we call as a blinker. So we're not worried about what's happening outside. It's not peripheral view, it's just blinker view. Whereas the product owner, the business team, could obviously look at all the other things. They put the stuff into the backlog. They say, well, we need to have the payment. We need to have an integration with the third-party payment gateway. We need to have an order processing functionality. We need to work with the suppliers. All of those, obviously, they're definitely working on those in the background, the business, from the business point of view. And that's where the backlog would really help. Whereas for the development team, when they're working on a sprint, they don't have to worry about all the other things. They need to only focus on the sprint, what is in the scope of the sprint. Let's talk about the example again of the catalog. Only work on that catalog. Don't worry about anything that is the business is working on, the product backlog. Worry about the sprint backlog. Once you start the sprint, that 2-3 weeks, you don't have to worry about anything else. All you need to focus on is delivering that functionality that you promised, that you committed as a team. And that's why we said yesterday that the team estimate, the team does the estimation, the team does the development work, the team does the testing, the team does the delivery. So everything is being owned by the team. So in Agile, it's all about teamwork. Team is empowered to take the decision, to work on it, and then to make sure it happens. And then the other important thing is quality of this work. So while it is important that we are not really aiming for perfection, I just said that yesterday, that perfection is the enemy of good. So don't try to be perfect, create a fantastic product and try and check everything into that, saying that I would have the great, brilliant, most fantastic, amazing product that you could ever imagine, and then spend years and years in that. But it's important, whatever we deliver has to work. So for example, we were talking about the time boxing. Well, in the Agile context, it's called time boxing. So we time box that first one, the catalog, as the first functionality that would come out of the door to the customers by November, let's say. So then that particular, you're delivering only that, you're focused only on delivering that catalog where items are displayed and the images, and you click on the item, you should be able to select it and then add it to the cart. That functionality is only that you're delivering. You're not worried about all the other things, the bells and whistles. So if you're delivering this shopping cart by November, you should be able to deliver it with good quality, right? I mean, it need not be fantastically looking, it need not be great, and it's not the best product in the world. But at least when you try and deliver this one, you should make sure that it's actually working well for the customers. So it should work well. It should not actually have too many defects that the customers would stop using, or they would get really frustrated with that. It might have some defects. That's what we call as known issues. So when we release a product in the Agile context, we actually send a release note. Again, very important. We'll talk about all of these in the next week as well. But this release note and the release mechanism has to be having in such a way that you specify what is the new update, what is the release consisting of, what new requirements are packed in, what are the changes that you have from the already existing requirements, and then if there are any known issues. So for example, if something is not working, if Apple releases a new product to the market, a new iPhone, a Samsung, there's a new Galaxy S10, S12, whatever it is. I don't know, I lost count of the 10s and 11s now. Too many things there, too many updates there, too many product versions there. But every time they release, they actually have this, if you can see in the top, what's new. So when you click on that, it actually has got a list of new requirements, new features is what they call, because the product, new features, you can do this, that, it's new added. Now you can have Bluetooth 4.0 connection, integration, blah, blah, blah. And then you say changes or improvements. So in that section, you can actually get to see what has changed now, what is doing something better. It's already there before, but now it's better. something like, for example, enhanced security, right? Enhanced security. Now it's applying two-factor authentication, for example. So that's the new change or improvement. And then known issues, for example, this phone, they say that the speaker occasionally could actually give the buzz noise occasionally when using one or two different apps, the third-party apps. So that could be a known issue. So they're letting the customers know, you're letting the customers know beforehand, even before they actually say, you know what, I found there's a problem. You actually say, you know what, I know this. We know that there is a problem. We're working on that. But just in case you also encounter that, so that you don't have to shout too much, or you don't have to let us know because we already knew about it. So that's called a known issue. So all of these are important in the context of Agile. So you should come up with a release note for every release that you put. What's new, what's changed, or what's improved, and then what is the known issue? What are the known issues that you have with that release? Again, important to know that perfection is not the answer, but good is fine. Multiple models. There's, as I said just now, just because Apple released a new product, for example, just like a wearable watch, and an Apple Watch, they might come up with something, or an AirPod. They might come up with a new product, completely new concept of embedded chip that you actually put into your brain under the skin, and you can actually kind of, it tracks and traces your health, and then you can actually, just by double tap, you can speak to anybody, or you can actually kind of activate your phone or whatever it is. All of those. So let's say that that's a new concept or a new product that Apple would introduce into the market in 2021. So initially, when they release, obviously there would be a lot of interest. People will start buying it, but then it is not perfect. So they actually release after a few weeks. They'll get the feedback from the customers after the alpha and the beta versions. They release the first version of the product. It still has got some issues. Then they would work on that. They would make sure that all of these are solved. And then they'll release another one in 2 weeks. Maybe it's called an update or a patch, and it automatically installed. And then after about 6 months, they'll release the next version of this. And after about a year, they'll release one more improved version of this product. So let's call it as iSense or whatever. So this would actually automatically sense from how you're thinking or what you're thinking. It would automatically do the work for you. So that's, I'm just thinking loudly. Anyway, so that's the version. So release multiple models, multiple versions, multiple builds. It's not one size fits all, one perfect solution the first time around. This is a very, very important thing with Agile, which is what is actually kind of an opposite of what we were doing in the early 80s, 90s, and even in 2000s, where we are talking about getting it right the first time. That's what Deming said. Quality, all the quality principles were all about getting it right the first time. Whatever you do the first time, it should be fantastic. That's the approach of quality management in those days. But with Agile, it's not that. You don't have to get it really perfect the first time. Try and work on it. You deliver it. You don't have to wait for 1 year to get the perfect thing. Just work on it for about 2-3 weeks. Try and get into a shape which is working. It's absolutely working fine. Maybe spend another 2-3 weeks to make it work better. Then after about a month, you release it. And once you release it, then you can actually kind of get the feedback from the customers, and you can improve on that further. Then maximize the stakeholder investment. So you need to maximize the investment of the stakeholders. This investment is not just about the shareholders or the sponsorships. It's also about the money, not just about money, but also the time and the effort, and perhaps the entire capital, the intellectual capital of all of these people. So the team is collectively responsible for maximizing this investment of time, effort, intellectual capital, and money invested into this. And the change is incremental, very important. You're not delivering a big bang like the waterfall model in Agile. It's all about delivering something in a small ways, and then slowly improving on that. So it's all about that stepwise change. It's not the big bang radical approach like in the waterfall. And the rapid feedback, it's all about feedback, right? So the moment you actually deliver something quickly to the market, you get the feedback quickly from them. So it's the engagement, the continuous engagement and involvement of the customers and the users at every point of time. And that's what works fantastic with Agile. Which is what was a nemesis, was a problem with waterfall. We had that situation where I was talking about the other day, a project where we worked. We had to actually spend a year and a half to actually deliver something, and then we showed it to the customer and it says, no, this is not what we wanted. This is not what is stated in this, specified in the requirements. This is actually a flop. This is the whole time, the money and the effort that you put in is all waste. It's a flop show. So we're going to actually sue you, is what the client said to the development team. All because of one problem that we did not take into consideration, the non-functional requirements, specifically the performance requirement of generating the report quickly. That was the case as we discussed yesterday. So if we went Agile with the project, we need not have waited for a 1 year, 1.5 whole year to actually kind of get the feedback from the customer. It would be almost instantaneous. It will be like as quickly as 2 weeks. In 3 weeks, we would have got the feedback from the customer. So the feedback is rapid because you deliver something and you're delivering in 2 weeks, a 3 week cycle. You get the feedback, you plow the feedback, improvement, the suggestions, the changes, the defects. You get it all the way back into the backlog. And then you prioritize. If it is urgent, you'll fix it. If it's not, then you actually put it for the next sprint. So you're actually getting the feedback quicker, fairly quickly in the Agile mode, and which is what is important for the continuous changing and improvement of that. Again, these two, the rapid feedback and the incremental change, they're like intertwined, they're like linked. If you're delivering something quickly and it's an improvement, then the customer would work on that, would have a look at it, and they will be able to give you an idea whether it is working fine or not, whether it's not working, it's looking good, it's not looking good. And then with that feedback, you can actually again change it, again improve on that in the next release. So this constant loop of these loops are actually getting bigger and bigger. So you've got a much better product, much improved, much bigger, a lot of more important features that work for the users. And then as we discussed, working software is the primary goal. It's not the perfect product. It's not the documentation. Previously, as I said before, we've got these requirement documents of thousands of pages that I used to write. And I used to spend at least a good few months, about 4 or 5 months, to get that requirements document perfect. And then after the sign off, the freezing, it used to take a good few months. But what is important is till about the 7th or 8th month, you still did not see the product. After about 9 months after the design and the architecture and the low-level design, that's when the developers would come in, they'll start looking at working on the code, and then that's when the product would have some semblance of a product. The first page would be developed after 9 months of requirements. Whereas with Agile, it's not that. With Agile, you can actually pretty much develop a product, depending on the type of the product and the complexity. But I would say perhaps in about 2 to 3 months, you've got actually a product, maybe one module. If not the entire product, you're talking about one module or 2 modules. So that will be ready and you can go to market in the first 1 or 2 months of the product development. So what is important there is the working software. It's not the loads of pages of documents and requirements documents and the processes and stuff like that. And again, travel light, it's all about keeping the documentation to the minimum that's important in Agile. If somebody says that it's no documentation, don't believe that. In Agile, still there's documentation, but then it's actually lightweight documentation. User stories, for instance, we were talking about the requirements yesterday, how they're captured in the in the form of user stories in Agile. It still is required. You still need to write user stories, but then they're not like those huge 1,000-page documents. They're just like a one-liner document in Agile, right? You still have got to do that. And then once you do that, then you can actually kind of assign the user story to a team or to a resource, or somebody can work on that. And then once they fix it, you can close that. You can actually kind of change that again later. So you can see that kind of a life cycle, the traceability of the requirement and the user story in the Agile context. So it's important we travel light. And that's the reason why in the context of the Agile development, we were talking about the e-commerce website. So you can actually try and deliver the functionality of the catalog, where you can try and add 2-3 products or 2-3 items. You can deliver that in the first 2 months. If you start it today, in November time, we can actually deliver that catalog and the ability to select an item and add it to the cart. And then again, perhaps in about 2-3 months from there on, we can have the checkout functionality, the shopping cart, and then we can have the order processing. And by about June, July, we can have the payment made through credit card. And by about August, September time, we can actually have the payment through bank transfer, through check, through PayPal, or any of these. So you can see that it's actually improving. It's actually incrementally you're developing, you're adding more and more functionality that matters to the users. It's not a big bang, one delivery that has all of these. It's actually kind of phased in